Okay, so these are some statistics that I think is important. As I said, while some workplace stress is normal, like it's good to be under the pump, and there's nothing better than, as a team, getting something across the line and high-fiving, that bid or tender that's taken 3 months and you're running to the box to put it in and you're just, there's nothing better than that, and there's a real camaraderie around that, and it's good. That's the good stuff. But the other side is Medibank Private did a big research on this a few years ago, on how much it actually costs the workplace in Australia. So these figures are for Australia. So workplace stress costs the Australian economy $14.1 billion a year. Like, that's mind-blowing. That's Australia. Imagine the world, but that is Australia. Stress-related absenteeism costs employers $10.11 billion per year. Now you think of, small family business, medium, small, SMEs, even the large, it doesn't matter. You think about the impact. You think about the lost revenue earned because of that. 3.2 days a week per year are lost due to workplace stress. That's significant. So you think about, you've got 100 staff and they're all taking 3.2 days a year off, and what that does, what the potential of that could look like for your bottom line. This is real stuff. And so, sadly, I think we're entering into that, to the American world of, people are so going out on stress leave at what I would say the drop of a hat. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but, it's, you'll go to a doctor and it's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling stressed. Okay, I'll give you 2 weeks off. Now, again, there's always time and place for that, right? But is that actually dealing with a real issue? If people come to me and say, I'm just stressed, I'm like, you know what? I'm really glad that you know that. Tell me about that. What is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you know you're stressed? Oh, I just feel stressed. That's not good enough. You need to know. You can't just use that word. Kids at school, don't start me on what's happening in the younger generation. All on antidepressants, all not cope. I had a 14-year-old in my office, and I don't do a lot of children's stuff. And she was like, I'm just so stressed, and I'm just, I've got to go and get some antidepressant. And I was like, wow, And again, it's very real. But how do they know that language? Because stress is just bandied around. But what I want, if nothing else today, I just want you to understand the enormity of what that word really means. Well, this is what it means to your businesses. And so I'm just remembering I had a client only a couple of weeks ago. She was a nurse in a hospital and was really struggling with the level of expectations, and had been in theatre and one of the instruments went missing. And someone else, one of her workmates, was like, oh, don't worry about it, it'll show up somewhere. And she's like, no, we need to find that, because what if it's in the patient? And I'm like going, say what? She was like, well, I had to account for it, like it's my responsibility. And as she was talking to me, she was getting all these red blotches. And I was like, what did you do? And she was like, it was just awful. I stayed up till 1 a.m, I didn't sleep. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna have to wear it. And she went into the surgeon and she said, this is what's happened. The rest of the team had said, don't worry, because she goes, it was an instrument this long. There was no way it was in the patient. But she said, we had to go to the patient's bed with the surgeon and say, we need to do an x-ray because we think, and I was like, what did that, I would just be like, are you joking me? But the stress that caused her. But then what happened was the conflict between, because, oh, good on you, why did you go into, because they found the instrument, someone had labelled it wrong in the wrong box. But her internal framework was, I need to follow process, this is someone's life. I'm like, amen to her, like, good on you. But then the conflict that caused in the rest of the team, she was ostracised, wasn't invited to one of the girls' birthday dinners, and the list goes on. And so she's sitting in my office having these blotches, and she'd done nothing wrong. But it was just, so again, in that circumstance, it's like, okay, how could we have done it differently? Are you happy with what you did? I am. Great. You know what? You did nothing wrong. But then having to work through how to manage the conflict. So it's very real, and the pressure is on, and the smaller the team is, the harder it is, unfortunately. So this is significant, and this was a few years ago, so I can only imagine that it's on the rise. So what are we doing as organisations to make sure that's not happening? I remember a girlfriend, I was working in Singapore and we were recruiting recruiting, and we were recruiting people from Europe, and one of the people that I was interviewing was from England, and we were talking about stress and how do you manage it, and he's like, oh, and I'm not even going to try an English accent because I'm not good, but he was like, I love our Doona days. And I'm like, your what? He goes, our Doona days. I said, not sure what that is. He said, in our workplace, we are allowed 3 Doona days a year. And I said, and he goes, that's a day when we can ring up our manager and just say, you know what, I'm staying under the Doonas today. No excuses, no, I've got gastro, because isn't that what everyone uses when they want a day off? No, not really, but it's the most common. So it's no questions asked. It's just actually, I'm feeling flat. I'm exhausted, it doesn't even matter. That Doona represented, I'm just staying in bed. Now, whether he stayed in bed, it didn't matter, but it was a language that was used in that organisation that was 3 days, which is literally the equivalent of what people are taking anyway with their fake sickies, or not feeling well, but could be at work, but don't want to face what I have to face, or they've been, not good to me, so they can get stuffed. That's the language that starts using, so that's where the 3.2 day goes. So, what a great concept. I've never forgotten that. Doona days, just no, and what does that really cost a business? Not a lot. Not a lot. Think about that. Why should we manage it? Maybe some of you are sitting here going, oh, seriously, is this really my problem? Why can't people get it together? And I'm just trying to do my job. But there's so many different benefits. The economic benefit is, there's a return on investment by understanding your people, by supporting them, by giving them different options to do their job the best they can with the internal resources, remembering that people have very different capacities in life. And I think that's sometimes one of the things that we forget, that we can have all of us here and we would get given one job, and there would be some people that would be guns, others mediocre, and others that would struggle. Not for any other reason than we've got different skills and talents and abilities and internal frameworks. When I was in HR and recruitment, there was something like it cost, for every person you brought on board, it was $100,000 worth of investment before they even started. Because let's face it, we don't get much out of people in the first year. There was training, there was, all the buddy systems and the going out on site, and then the KPIs weren't expected to be hit for the first few months. So when you started putting a dollar value to it, it was roughly around $100,000. That's a lot of money. So before someone's walked in your door and they've got the contract, you want to make sure that there's an environment that is conducive to performance. And that it's not just all about the bottom line too. The economic benefits of having staff that are not stressed and having staff that are functioning well is, customer service. Your clients will benefit from it. I'm sure in medical practitioners in your world, the receptionist, sick people like me last week ringing up, hello, can I please see Dr. George? What do you want? Because she's got 14 different, no, she didn't do that, but 14, but 14 different people and sick people, there's just, so there's a reason to keep people in a happy, safe place, because, you don't know what clients you're losing. And in Adelaide as well, when you've got clients, you want to keep them. It's really hard to get people. It's, so it's about relationship and building. So one foul moment of the bursting of the bubble can lose you a really, really big client. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that, where we've had to be grovelling to try and get a client back because we've had a staff member that's been rude to them. Not fun. That is not fun to go and grovel. But what's more interesting is, how do we allow our staff to get like that? Either it's behavioural, which we need to deal with, or they are really under the pump and not coping, and maybe they were the wrong representation for our business at the face front, Reduced costs of sick pay, which we've talked about. But the benefits, by de-stressing the workplace, you know what I mean by that, the benefits are people feel more motivated, and more committed. When they feel, people just want to feel understood. That's the main thing human beings need in this world, is to be understood. Time and time again in my office, not so much in this language, but I just wish people would understand how hard it is, how difficult that was when that happened to me, or what it's like living with a child with health complicated. I just wish people would understand. So as human beings first, and then as managers, team leaders, whatever, to give that gift of understanding. You know what? I understand you're under the pump. I understand you've got really difficult circumstances. I have a huge amount of compassion for that. But just that language, it's about the language. It's about language is very powerful. You know, people will feel supported, morale will be high, you know, people work harder. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. So we want to foster really healthy relationships. We don't, you know, there's always that one person, maybe not in your business, but there's always that one person in your business that just festers everything, you know, and everything revolves around them. People walk on eggshells, don't upset her, because if you say that, she might do that. And it's kind of like, really? Why we want the power that that person holds? Again, that's another word. But the power that that holds is frightening. But to be able to start using a language of practicing curiosity, I'm really curious. Why are you behaving like that? Because sometimes people don't even recognise it. It's just become learnt. And they've got away with it, so it's who I am. No, it's not. You weren't born rude. Yep. I give you permission to use that line. But that's true. I've got a 16-month-old. He's not rude. I mean, he's a bit naughty, but he's not rude. Like that's learnt, isn't it? Let's be honest. So sometimes it's about having those hard conversations as managers. That it's, you know what, you really need to know you're being rude. And that's all there is to it. So what are we going to do about that? How can you not be rude? What would it be like for you not to be rude?